Hey friends out there, Rob here. Today I want to talk to you about photography once again. Today we're talking about, again, the beautiful Pentax 17, and I'm going to give it a nice comparison. I'm going to share with you some photos that my son and I took when we were out on a photo safari, so to speak, here in Virginia Beach down at the boardwalk. I want to share with you just a few of those images and some of the things I think are really neat about it. Now, when we talk about film, when we talk about the X100f, really the comparison here is half frame and that film look. The reason I think this is important, I did a video on it recently, is because so many people talk about how film looks so good, and it does, but that really happens to be because many people that are being introduced to film again never shot it back when it was the only thing to shoot, right? And so they don't really realize all the stuff that goes behind the film to make it look so good. Like, you think you get your digital scans back from the dark lab or the dark room or film lab or negative lab or any one of those places, the find lab, and they just look great, right? Well, that's because a human had their eye on it, generally speaking, and they made sure that it looked great. Now, if you do the scanning yourself and the development yourself, then you'd be keenly aware of that, because whatever program you use to develop your film, you would, of course, see the process that you really go through. So yes, that film look has a lot to do with just the ease of getting it back, the scans, and then sharing it. But more importantly, what does it look like compared to digital, the thing that we're saying looks so blasé or clinical or sterile? At least that's the concept of this conversation. Today, we're looking at Harman Phoenix, the first generation, right, as shot and printed on or shot with the Pentax 17 and printed on DNP dye sublimation paper from my DNP 40 in 4x6. But more importantly, we're going to look at the scans from an Epson V550 and Silverfast version number, 9, the 9 version. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. A couple things to note. First of all, some of these images, like the one right here, didn't come out the way you might think directly, and I edited them. Now, this is a direct comparison to an image like this, because the film image didn't look like that before I used Silverfast to develop that scan in a way that looked nice. There are a few things I want to talk about the film stock of Harman Phoenix that I absolutely love. And of course, this is generation 1. They got generation 2 now. Do you see these orange and yellows that they have right here and these red highlights down here? You can see my mouse is moving over it. Okay. Do you see these beautiful blues? Okay. I love that about Harman Phoenix. I think, for me, Harman Phoenix does a great job of showing the blues and the yellowish oranges, kind of like Ektar, except away from the browns and more to the orange reds, and we still have this pop of blue. I absolutely love it. When it comes to the settings here, you'll just need to know that this was shot also in auto or program mode, and I was generally shooting with +1 EV and sometimes with flash, and I was using Harman 200 pushed to 400. So I was maxing out the shutter speed of the film, leading to some overexposed images. Now, I was attempting to do that, although it didn't always turn out exactly how I wanted. I do like overexposed Harman, just like I like overexposed Portra. So maybe it would have been better to use Portra 160 pushed to 400, or even Pro Image 100 pushed to 200, rather than a 200 speed film pushing to 400 speed on this bright day. But that is okay. So first thing I want to talk about, and we're going to bring the little C button up so that we can all see. Great, we see them on the left and the right there. Okay, so on the left you have the Fujifilm X100f, and on the right you have the Pentax 17. Let me see if I can go ahead and turn this information on for you. Yeah, okay, so you can kind of see a little bit more up in this top corners. Digital, right? Digital is much, much more clean, sterile, right? When we zoom in over here, just look at the grain structure in comparison to the sky. We're shooting JPEGs. Both of these have been adjusted in their perspective programs to look the way that we do. And yeah, There's more detail in the JPEG image. I don't think anyone would have questioned that, and there's definitely more dynamic range. When it comes to that film look, though, okay, could I make the Fujifilm image look like the Phoenix image? Absolutely. I could. I could push it that way. I could add some grain and do those things. But the reality is, when I leave my program, Silverfast, over here with the Phoenix image, the film, this is what we're left with. Boom. I think if we were to look at both of these images, or any of them, we would notice that you have more options with film, or excuse me, you have more options with digital, but maybe I just like the film better. Don't forget, I did edit both of these in their respective programs to get us to where we are. Okay. And I wanted to just kind of show you the difference of sun stars looking in the same area. Now, my son and I didn't shoot these in exactly the same way, but you can see we've got some very definite, very moderate but definite sun stars up there from the blades of the aperture and as it's come through. And that's on the Fujifilm. And on the Pentax, I think we got to work a little bit harder to get them. I just didn't see them come through here. I have seen them a little bit more in different images, not on this roll. Also, look at my development. I didn't do a lot of cleaning and I didn't get rid of all this stuff. But in any event, I think you've got an interesting shot right there altogether. Let's move on over real quick. Now we're going to look at this image of Poseidon. Okay, so these two weren't taken at exactly the same time, and you can see my son is in this one over here on the right, the one that I took using the Phoenix 200 on the Pentax 17, and the one that he took on the left, no one's in the image at all. But you can see quite a bit more detail in the sculpture. It's a very nice image. Both of them look great. Give them some props on that composition right there. What do you think? That's very nicely balanced. In any event, again, I like the colors of the Pentax 17. We're going to look at a couple of these. We're going to go ahead and kind of scoot through one more real quick and give you another one to look at. Let's see, where were we? Right, and there we go. So another image, another shot. You definitely have a lot more shadow recovery using digital. Again, something I don't think anyone was expecting to a big surprise, but a lot of times we forget what it's like to shoot with hard light and hard shadows. And obviously the more dramatic image is the one from the Pentax 17. Also consider that we're shooting a Pentax 17 on film. This looks so much better when it's printed than it does on the screen here, but there's quite a bit of detail in the Pentax 17. It does not match the level of detail in the Fujifilm, the digital sensor, but film is holding up very nicely here. All right. Let's move on over. There was one more. I think this is a really dramatic shot with the Pentax 17 on the Harman Phoenix, which is nice. And here's another one that I thought was really good. We'll kind of look at this other one just for a second and kind of, this is an upward shot on the abs and the face and everything. And just look how the film really keeps the gradient in the sky. Very nice. You'll see it all over. Now we're coming back over here to this Fujifilm image, and look, the gradient's not really there. The sky just is the color. So you miss that gradient. If you enjoy those types of things, film gives it to you lock, stock, and barrel. And there's my little buddy. Check that out. Okay, moving right along. Oh, you can see him over there with, of course, the Fujifilm X100f. Now here we were taking a couple of photos. I like this image. I'm not quite sure I like the color, but this is where we are for what we're doing. I don't know if it would be fair to come over here and dip the colors a little bit. I think maybe we're okay there, just to kind of give a better color rendition. The reason for me doing this is because I want you to see as close to as possible on this image, just so that you realize that we can get stuff that looks very close to the Harman look. So I guess we'll do that real quick. As you can see, I'm popping up the oranges and the reds. And if I really want to make this more film-like, I can begin to overexpose it a little bit. Okay, and the final thing I'll do is add some grain. Give it some grain and give it a large size to kind of match. Yeah, I think we're in a good spot here. Now that we're here, I can come over and give you your candidate to look at. There we go. Okay. I like the way that we did this, or at least I did this here, because now, make it a little bit bigger for you too. Now you get to see something that looks very similar. Okay. So we've got the X100f on the left. We've got the Pentax 17 on the right, Harman Phoenix, the first version. And we have very quickly attempted to edit the digital image to look more like the film image. Now, this is one of those cases where I wasn't paying as much attention, and we did overexpose. Once again, I could have very easily just pulled back that exposure by changing the EV knob from +1 to 0 or -1. This could have been very helpful here, but at 400 speed film, on a bright sunny day, we already know we're maxing out the sunny 16 rule, unless we're at aperture 16, and I don't know that it was. I can't tell you that it was. It was at something. I'm going to zoom in so that we can see some of the detail. Now, we're zoomed all the way in. This is like a 300%, I think, or close to it, or close to 100%, I should say. And I just want you to kind of see the difference in the needles on the palm leaves, right? I want you to see the pavement, right? The difference of the rocks in the pavement. I want you to see, of course, the grain structure, right? You can see it up here in the blues, right? And I want you to see Poseidon, okay? So what we're looking at is really just the difference, and it comes down to taste. Which do you prefer? Now, should the image on the right have been exposed better? Obviously, it would have come out looking a little bit nicer. But I think either one of them can stand for themselves. I really do. If you're out there shooting film, this is the type of image you're going to get with the Pentax 17, shooting Phoenix 200. I think you'd be pretty happy. Okay. From here, we're going to move on into just a little portrait I took of my son. This, of course, is the Pentax 17, and everything looks nice. I love it right here. This is an instance where I also told it to use flash. I remember that directly, and it did flash. My son saw it. We can even see the catch light in his eyes. His face was in dark shadow. I'm close enough here in order to capture all of that. Of course, the flash isn't doing much, but it is pulling us out of the shadows here a little bit, and then we can see that we really were working the film hard because we've got this heavy grain in the background. Now, Harman is a heavy grain film, not like Portra, probably twice, really rough film actually, but I like that about it. And as such, my son took a picture of me where it looks like I'm doing crazy, so don't worry about me. And we come back to another cool shot of my son. This one I think is a little bit nicer, and the profile, these oranges really print beautifully on the paper, although they may look a little oversaturated here. You guys know if you're printing your images that the paper does a lot for sharpness and saturation quite a bit, especially if you've got a glossy or a matte or a pearl finish. There's a lot of different type of looks you can get. These are one of the last two images that we're going to look at as we compare images to images. Okay, so once again, Fujifilm on the left, and we've got Pentax 17 on the right. Of course, the image of the boat, you can actually read the phone number. You can't read it. I mean, you can read the phone number on the digital image. You can't read it on the film. You're losing detail at distance. Now, this was shot in auto, so it should have been at the hyperfocal distance. It was still shot at the +1 EV, which you can see we're overexposed. But when we look at the image, this is one where I think that the digital, of course, takes it without question, except that beautiful color. I think there's a gorgeous color here. And even with that film, everything was so overexposed, you can actually see a slightly natural vignette here on the film, which I think is pretty cool. I just think it's a neat image. Okay, we're going to move right along real quick, and the next one we were going to do was to photograph these flowers. Now, this is using the close-up macro capability of the Pentax 17, and in order to do that, you just focus on the flower and keep it in the P mode, and then I think it's what they say, 9 inches or so. The strap tells you how far you have to be. You use that as your measuring tool. So that's on the right. The left, of course, is the X100, X100f, and we just took two completely different types of shots here. The X100f does have a macro mode. I was hoping that my son was going to use macro, but he didn't, and that's okay. It would have been nice to have gotten a macro to come in and look at these two flowers, but even though we didn't, we see quite a bit of detail on the film image. Of course, there's also some beautiful background blur and separation. I think that that's just great, and the colors are very, very natural here, even to the fact that these flowers were so brightly lit that they did look a little shiny. You know, they've got a little waxy coating to them, and so they are kind of shiny. So we see these white highlights on here. We're actually seeing more of what the image looked like when I was there in person. Of course, on the left, the one with the X100f, you're seeing an image that looks more like it's been evenly toned because the dynamic range is higher. Okay, so you've seen all that stuff. Now I'm going to just show you some of my fun favorite images. I'm going to give this to you right here. Okay, so this is just a picture I took of the X100f, and look how nice and sharp we are. We're also using that macro capability. I did use the flash. You can kind of see some of the flash right here, that little light, that little dot right there, and that little dot right there. I used a flash. It did overexpose the fingers, but I wanted to get in here to look on this bright sunny day. We can still see the knurling in the film knob that is up here, these knobs. We can see the Fujifilm spherical lens. We can see the texture detail. There's just a lot of great things going on. I love these types of photos. Then I wanted to do a selfie with my boy. You can tell we're all excited looking into the sun, also with flash. You can see that I've used a flash because I've got this little light right here. I could have, I didn't get rid of that little bit of debris. I should have clone stamped it out. But anyways, this looks nice. We can also see a blurry background. Love these images. So when you get your focus nailed, we're doing really well. How do you do this? Well, I set it to position 2, which is the 2 people, or the one, actually, excuse me, the knife and fork, and then I hold it at arm's length. Knife and fork is about 2.5 feet. Works perfect for this kind of selfie. And then I use the viewfinder window as a reflective surface to kind of judge my placement. Over here we've got a cool shot. This is the Hyatt downtown at 31st Street. Really nice. I like it. I think it's the Hyatt. I can't remember right now. Yeah, it's the Hyatt. And then I took 2 shots, 1 and 2. 2 different shots, but I used my feet to zoom in and move a little forward to kind of get some of this stuff out of the way, you can see. And then the final shot is just my son chilling and having a good time. Yeah. So that is going to do it for us today. We've been talking about film, specifically what it looks like with the Pentax 17 as compared to the Fujifilm X100f. I gotta say that if you're walking around shooting, the X100f is going to be the camera that is a one-and-done camera. When you think about how they shoot, the shooting experience between these guys, it's really very similar. A lot of times when I shoot with the X100f, I turn the back display off, I turn the analog viewfinder on, and I turn off photo display after I take a photo. I also use generally single point autofocus, and I set it to the center. Most of the time I'll put the camera on aperture priority and go about my day. My metering is important at that point. I have to set the photometry, and I set it to center spot or evaluative metering, which is like matrix metering. I don't have to remember to do any of that with the Pentax 17. I love that it functions better, in my opinion, simpler, I guess would be a better word, a different word, than the digital camera, the Fujifilm, because I just literally pick it up and go, and I don't have any distractions. All I need to think about is if I want to use flash, if I want a long exposure, that's it. A long exposure could be for nighttime, it could be for shadowy things, you know, backlit subjects or dark subjects, whatever I want. I get to play and have a good time. And guys, I get 80 shots out of a 36 roll. I'll get 80 shots. That's a lot of shots. So I enjoy photography because I like the process of it. And I think that I get images that I'm just as proud of with my Pentax 17 as I do with my Fujifilm X100f. If you want this look, You can't get it without film. And a great camera to do that, yep, even at 500 bucks, is a Pentax 17. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you have liked what we've talked about, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit me up with a cup of coffee or a case of beer through PayPal, and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye for now.